You have with us at this time a man who's also no stranger to the Observer, UWI Political Scientist, Dr. Bishnu Ragoonath. Pleasant good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, indeed. Prime Minister must listen to the public on crime. You said a legislative framework that is not legislation is not going to solve the crime situation. Well, let me be honest with you, Dr. Raghunath. As we speak now, the murder rate is at 621. That's the number. We still have a few weeks to go again before we usher in a brand new year, 2024. And one would think at this point in time that this would be a priority where we wouldn't have to be discussing the sort of tiff back and forth, just trying to get people who are in authority to sit down and deal with an important issue that is affecting Trinidad and Tobago. How did we get here and why are we here?
Well, the question is how we got here and why are we here is simply this has been building up over the years. I mean, we've seen various reasons why crime has been on the upswing. The unfortunate thing is simply that the security forces, the police, the defense force, has not been able to arrest the crime situation. And more critically, I think that there's a concern as to whether or not they are getting the full governmental support in treating with the issues. Now, when I say full governmental support, let me clarify immediately what I mean. I don't mean the government a la the PNM. Government is simply both, if from a political science perspective, government is both government and opposition. And what we are seeing here today is simply the PNM apparently has an agenda and they are concerned about pushing that agenda. They are not concerned too much about what other people have to say, and to that extent we're not having that government and that governance agenda. I have made it quite clear, and I've stated it on various other fora, that the challenge we face is simply that the PNM does not have the answers to the crime situation, and they are not willing to listen to other people who may have some answers. And I say that in the context of simply saying that they are not willing to have a national dialogue on crime.
Well,
What we had earlier this year, I think it was in January, with the Prime Minister coming out and saying we're going to have a crime consultation, and we all agreed and said very good, that is what we need. But then within a month, he changes his talk and said it's not going to be a crime consultation for Trinidad and Tobago. It's going to be a CARICOM crime consultation, which meant that simply any stakeholder from Trinidad and Tobago who had an interest in getting involved in the crime consultations were now being thrown to the wayside.
yeah.
And that includes the opposition too. Now, I'm not saying the opposition have the answers. All I'm simply saying is simply that we need to answer the question. Do people in our society have suggestions as to how to deal with the crime situation? I will tell you, and I will use your forum, your station to say this. I went to my classes at the university and I asked my students, do you all have suggestions to deal with crime? Students at all levels, master's level, undergraduate level, first year level, they all came back and said, yes, we have suggestions. In fact, I have on my computer right now at least 3 students who, one of whom, or 2 of whom, said they grew up in crime-ridden areas. They grew up with friends and neighbors who are now murderers and gunmen and whatever else. And they have suggestions as to how to deal with crime. But guess what? They will never have the opportunity to say what they want to say because the government has taken a position that we're not really to listen to citizens. We only want to talk about legislation, and talking about legislation, we're only going to talk about to the UNC, and the members of parliament to say what legislation. But legislation wouldn't solve the crime situation. You have to get the answers from on the ground, and that is where the real problem lies.
I agree. I agree with you. However, you did touch on something earlier, talking about the government and its agenda, and I guess we could even say if it's a hidden agenda, it is coming out into the light. Now, Dr. Rowley said the government was willing to hold discussions outside Parliament if the opposition was open to it. However, he voiced skepticism about the opposition's commitment, suggesting political motivation might hinder progress. Now, it's quite clear that we, at this point in time, a very politically charged society. That's the environment, that's what's going on with the political landscape as we speak. And the fear of somebody gaining political traction or getting political brownie points, that in itself cannot give us enough justification as to why a conversation cannot be started to deal with the most threatening thing in our society today. Again, the numbers are 621 as we speak. I mean, at some point in time, we are going to be paying a price for this more than we're paying currently.
And this is why I keep talking about the need for a national dialogue. And that need for a national dialogue, and if I may dare say, this is not Bishnu Ragoonath himself and saying that there's that need for that national dialogue. I've spoken to people who are who sits in various international organizations and who have agreed that in Trinidad and Tobago there's a refusal to hold a national dialogue. In fact, it was only after one of those conversations that I went to my classes and I asked and realized, but we could have a national dialogue. It's just simply that those who have the authority and the wherewithal to convene such a national dialogue does not want it.
Yeah, but it also lacks social maturity. I mean, here you have Gary Griffith stepping up and saying, listen, if me being there is an issue, then I'm out. All right, go ahead, have your discussion. We will always have a sidebar. We will have our discussions. This is what we believe that needs to be implemented. I mean, like I said, one has to ask, these things basically are just, you're pulling hair here. You're grabbing at absolutely nothing. 621 murders in a population of 1.4, give or take, million people for 1 year. And we still have a few weeks to go. I mean, these things should not be the topic. This shouldn't be the issue. Whether Gary attends or he doesn't attend, Mr. Griffith is a citizen. He has no charges laid against him. He has no convictions. Right? He's a law-abiding citizen. And if he wants to attend, and you're right, it should be a national consultation, because I'm quite certain the people who are in the middle of the heat, we have no blue flashing lights. We have no security detail. We have no bodyguards. We are at the mercy of these criminals. The elderly are soft targets. And today, rather than sitting down and having a discussion, one is concerned about who's going to gain political traction, who's going to get favored by the people in authority. I mean, come on, if the boss calls you into the office and you go there with Harry, and it's quite clear that it's made out that Harry is totally incompetent, and the boss offers you the job, that's life. Let's get on with it. But we are losing to these criminals every single day while we try to figure out who needs to sit down and who needs to have this discussion.
And that is the reality of our pettiness in our politics. And in a way, all they are concerned about is holding on to power. Holding on to power, and the society could die and languish away if that is going to take away power from us. And that's where the real problem lies. The real problem here is simply one which says that grasp and to hold on to power regardless of what is in the best interest of the society. The unfortunate thing, and I'm a political scientist, and I have no cocoa in the sun. on my own behalf. But the unfortunate thing is that we could end up in a general election where, notwithstanding all that the government is doing and notwithstanding all the opposition is doing, we could very well end up in a very much so a stalemate in the next general election where we might have 1922. And in that context, who becomes government? So the two major parties in Trinidad may not have that full control of what is going to happen in the next election. But that in itself should have told and should have pushed our political leaders to say, forget what we want right now. When I say what we want to stay in power. Forget power for the time being. We still have a year and a half or 2 years before the election. In the meantime, let us treat with the critical issue affecting our society as at this point in time, and that critical issue is crime. And how are we going to reduce the crime?
And it sounds good. It sounds good on paper, Dr. Ragoonath, and I'm certain those folks who are watching and those who have lost loved ones, relatives, yeah, it's all good and well, but there's a reality there that we are yet to explore. The fact of the matter is that our lives can be snuffed out at any given moment. I mean, when we look at some of these videos that have gone viral, you ask yourself, my gosh, people have gone to the extreme to make sure that they go out and commit that crime that's known as murder. That young man in Europe, I mean, he just simply, the guy was passing by, he turned his back, but he made sure that, listen, I came here to take your life. I don't care about your family. I don't care about your loved ones. I don't care what you're living for. But I have a right, a God-given right, to snuff you out. And while all of that is taking place, there's still some concern, and the most important thing is, who doesn't want to look bad? Who's the leader? And I don't want anyone dictating to my government or giving my government any demands. My God, the government does not belong to you, even if you're the prime minister. We are all facing this thing on a daily basis. So what do we do? And again, when I asked you the question, how did we get here? I thought you would have told, listen, so all this compromising that took place, let's give them a chance. Let's see what they're going to do. Perhaps they have a plan. And while you and I and all right-thinking citizens know quite well that we cannot continue this way, the criminals are also looking on. And they know for a fact that this government has no plan. They know for a fact that this government is out of touch with the people. They know for a fact that this government does not know what they're doing and they're totally out of sync. And they're looking on. And what does that do? While it makes us vulnerable, it empowers them. So where do we go from here?
Where we go from here is simply the people now will have to turn on their government and insist that the government act if they are to continue to get the support of the people. And this is where I don't know if you may recall, I think probably around 2008, 2009, thereabouts, when somebody was killed and there was a tremendous march in Port-of-Spain.
Yes.
In order that I think the former MP,
Stephen Kedis did that march. Yes,
they had organized that.
Keith Noel, the Keith Noel Committee.
Right, and that is where the people stood up and say, enough is enough. Now I thought we were getting close to that point when we had the murder of this young lady, the one in Arima.
Yeah, but Dr. Ragoonath, don't mean to cut you. I know who you're talking about, but let's not forget at that time the PNM government said that they are not participating in anything that's labeled a death march. They had no problem with the amount of people that were dying. They just didn't like what was the name of the march.
Well, and that's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
Again, the way I look at it is petty politics rather than national politics at play in this country.
I agree with you. Our time is up. I want to thank you so much for taking time to link with us this evening. I hope that some sort of maturity, comes about, and those who know better will sit down and say, listen, we simply cannot be living like this. We can't. I mean, 621, and of course, unfortunately, we expect the numbers to go up. That's where we live. That's where we're at. We expect that. If we wake up one morning and we hear that no one died, we're more surprised. And now it's not only who has died, but how did they kill him? How did they kill him? That's where we are right now. So again, I want to thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Good luck to you and your team, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, and same to you. Good night.